Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everybody. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be taking a look at a couple of episodes from a super popular Austrian podcast called BLEIBEANDERS. It's all one word. That's BLEIBANDERS. It's made some serious waves over in Austria, and, well, we'd be selfish to keep all the great stuff we found there to ourselves. So this deep dive is for you. Consider it our reflection on some of the biggest takeaways from BLEIBEANDERS.
Right. We've had the chance to really dig into two specific episodes. One's all about having the end in mind from the beginning. Do you know your why? And the other one is called First Starting with the Man in the Mirror. It's episode 103, actually. And it really gets into, the importance of self-reflection and understanding your own personality before anything else.
Yeah, I mean, this deep dive's kind of like a fast track to some really thought-provoking ideas that have been resonating with people over in Austria. And the goal is to get you thinking about how you want to approach your life, what direction you want to go in, and why having a solid grasp of your own personality is so vital to that.
Absolutely. And one of the core concepts that really stuck out to me, especially from the having the end in mind episode, is this idea, this phrase they kept coming back to. Läst was, dann hast du was, dann bist du was, which essentially means perform, then you have something, then you are something.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I was like, this message so many of us heard growing up. Behave yourself, clean up your toys, finish your dinner, then you get the praise, then you get the affection. It's almost like we're taught from a very young age that love and approval are conditional, that they're based on what we achieve, not who we are.
Right. And that can lead us to believe, subconsciously even, that we constantly have to meet these external expectations to be worthy of love, of recognition, even respect. And what's interesting is, the host of BLEIBEANDERS, Markus Spenger, he's not necessarily trying to point fingers at parents here. He recognizes that a lot of this conditioning is generational. But the result, he argues, is that we end up chasing this never-ending need for validation from the outside world, which can leave us feeling kind of empty even when we achieve our goals, especially if those goals aren't aligned with our deepest values.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting, because BLEIBEANDERS offers this powerful counterpoint that you, just by existing, are inherently unique and valuable. You are already a what, regardless of any performing or having. And they use this really compelling example to illustrate this. Twins. Even identical twins who share the same DNA, who grow up in the same environment, often lead very different lives, have completely different experiences, and ultimately become distinct individuals. It really challenges this notion that our worth is tied solely to what we accomplish.
Absolutely. And I think that this constant striving, this never-ending pursuit of the next achievement can actually be a huge source of dissatisfaction, even when we reach those milestones. It makes you question whether the goals we're chasing are even truly our own, whether they're actually connected to what we really care about. And this naturally leads us to the next big idea explored in the Having the End in Mind episode.
Yeah, this is where Stephen Covey's work comes into play. Specifically, his third habit from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People begin with the end in mind. BLEIBEANDERS actually uses this as a springboard for a pretty intense thought experiment.
Yeah, it is kind of intense. It's called the graveyard speech exercise. And for those who aren't familiar with it, the idea is to imagine your own funeral and think about what you genuinely want 4 different people to say about you, people representing different aspects of your life. So you'd have someone from your family, someone representing your friends, your personal life, someone from your professional life, your career, and then someone who represents your hobbies, your passions, things like that. And you think about, well, what kind of impact did I have on these people? What would I want them to remember me for? And the real point of this exercise, it's not to dwell on the morbid, but to really get a sense of what you truly value, What legacy do you want to build?
I gotta admit, that's a pretty heavy image. I can imagine that would bring up a lot of intense feelings for people.
Yeah, for sure. And BLEIBEANDERS actually acknowledges that it can be pretty emotionally charged. So they also offer a slightly different approach, something maybe a little less, heavy. Instead of a funeral, they suggest writing birthday speeches for yourself. Like, imagine a significant birthday in the future, maybe your 30th, your 40th, something like that. And write those speeches from the perspective of those same 4 people.
Oh, I see. So instead of what do they say at my funeral, it's more like what might they say at a big birthday celebration? Same basic concept, just a different, maybe less intense way in.
Exactly. The fundamental purpose is the same, to help you figure out what your core values are and how you want to be seen in those different areas of your life. What's important to you in your relationships, in your career, and your passions.
And this is actually where BLEIBEANDERS shares a personal story, right?
Yeah.
About how going through this exercise led to a real epiphany about some friendships.
Yeah, the host, Markus, he talks about how this process really made him look at some of his friendships in a different light. He realized that there was this gap between how he wanted to be remembered by these friends and the reality of those relationships. He realized that some of these friends probably wouldn't mention or even really know about the things that were most important to him, either because he hadn't shared them or because they wouldn't really get it, wouldn't value it in the same way.
It's a powerful insight. It really makes you think about the company you keep, whether your relationships are truly aligned with your values, with the vision you have for yourself.
It does. And in Marcus's case, it led him to kind of reevaluate those friendships, maybe reduce the amount of contact he had with some people, or even let some of them naturally fade away. It shows how this exercise isn't just an abstract thought experiment. It can have real, practical implications for how we choose to live our lives.
So after really thinking about the end, BLEIBEANDERS then moves on to another really crucial concept, also in that same having the end in mind episode. Was ist dein Nordstern? What is your North Star?
Yeah, this is all about identifying that central guiding principle in your life, that overarching vision that drives everything you do. Think of your North Star as your ultimate why. That deeply held value or purpose that acts as your constant compass, guiding your decisions, big and small, and giving meaning to everything you do.
It's like having that fixed point of reference, a beacon in the distance that keeps you heading in the right direction, even when things around you are uncertain or unclear. And BLEIBEANDERS actually uses this great analogy. Imagine you're writing a book about your life. What's the title? What's the central theme? What's the legacy that story tells?
Right. And it's important to realize that finding your North Star, it's not something you just figure out overnight. The podcast emphasizes that it's this ongoing process of self-reflection and refinement over time. It's more of a journey than a destination.
Yeah, a marathon, not a sprint.
Mm.
And I think BLEIBEANDERS even mentions some resources to help people with this, right?
Yeah, they have an online masterclass that's specifically designed to guide people through this process of discovering their core values, finding their purpose, all over a period of several weeks. They even have exercises and ways to keep refining it over time.
Cool. So we've explored the importance of having the end in mind and the guiding principle of the North Star. Now let's jump into the other episode we wanted to cover. First, starting with the man in the mirror. This one really dives deep into the importance of personality, right?
Yeah, right off the bat, it asks this very fundamental question. What exactly is personality? And they actually start by looking at Wikipedia's definition, which usually includes things like individuality, the distinct character traits that we associate with someone who's mature, who has a lot of life experience.
But then BLEIBEANDERS presents this really interesting observation that challenges that traditional view.
Right. Markus tells this story about being on vacation and seeing this little kid, like maybe 18 months old, tops, who already had this incredibly distinct, engaging personality. And it made him think, maybe personality isn't just something that develops over years and years. Maybe some people are just born with these strong, inherent qualities.
It really makes you wonder about nature versus nurture.
Right.
And I remember they also talk about the origin of the word personality itself.
Yeah, they get into the whole concept of persona, like the masks we wear in different situations. And apparently the word comes from ancient Greek, where it literally meant what can be seen, the face or outward appearance.
So there's this idea of outward presentation, the persona we project in different roles.
Yeah.
But then there's this deeper, more intrinsic personality, the unique way we present ourselves across all those different roles, kind of like personas, the different hats you wear, and personality is the authentic you underneath all those hats.
Exactly. And then the podcast lays out 3 really compelling reasons why personality should come first. And the first one is so basic, but it's so profound. You are the only constant in your life.
Yeah, let that sink in for a second. You are the only constant.
Think about it. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, the way you interpret things, your experiences, your impressions, all of that is inherently yours, and it stays with you from the beginning to the end. While the people around you, your family, friends, colleagues, they come and go, you are that continuous thread running through it all.
It's so obvious when you say it out loud, but it's really quite powerful when you really think about it. And I think the real challenge is actually recognizing that and living in accordance with it,
Absolutely. And that leads us to the second reason BLEIBEANDERS gives for why personality comes first. Be the change you want to see in the world. It's a familiar saying, but they connect it to personality in a really insightful way. They argue that you need to cultivate that change within yourself first before you try to change others or the world around you. So if you want more positivity in the world, the first step is to nurture positivity within yourself.
And they have some really practical examples of this. Like, instead of getting caught up in negative news cycles or endless online arguments, choose to read a book, call a friend, do something positive and enriching for yourself. It's about taking control of your own actions and choosing to embody the change you want to see.
Yeah, it's recognizing the power of your internal state and how that ripples outward. And then the third big reason they give for prioritizing personality is this: how you lead yourself is how you lead others. It's all about leading by example, isn't it?
Absolutely. Walk the talk, as they say. And that applies to both our personal and professional lives.
Definitely. And they use this really vivid analogy. Think of a parent who's always lecturing their kid about healthy eating, but then turns around and eats junk food all the time. What's the kid really learning there? Actions speak louder than words, especially for kids.
Yeah, it's that disconnect between what you say and what you do. Kids are smart, they're always watching, and they're more likely to copy what they see you do consistently, not just what you tell them to do.
Exactly. And they even get into the whole idea of mirror neurons, these brain cells that basically make us subconsciously mirror the behavior we observe in others. It's fascinating. And this applies to all kinds of leadership, not just parenting. Whether it's at work, in your family, or in your community, how you carry yourself sets the tone for everyone around you. You want your team to be punctual. Well, you better be punctual yourself.
It all comes back to authenticity, doesn't it? Leading from a place of genuine self-awareness. So how do all these concepts we've been talking about, having the end in mind, finding your North Star, and recognizing the importance of personality, how do they all fit together?
They're all interconnected. It's like a holistic framework. Your vision for the future, that end in mind you want to achieve, and your guiding North Star, they should all be authentic expressions of your personality, of your core values. Who you are at your core should be driving what you want to do and the impact you want to have. It's like your personality is the foundation upon which you build your vision. And understanding yourself, your strengths, your values, your nature is crucial for living a meaningful and purposeful life.
So for you listening, the big takeaways from our deep dive into these BLEIBEANDERS episodes are these. Prioritize your own internal motivation over seeking external validation. Take the time to envision the impact you want to have, whether it's through the graveyard speech exercise, the birthday speech exercise, or simply reflecting on your values. Find your North Star, that guiding principle that keeps you on track, and really understand the role your personality plays in shaping your life and how you interact with and lead others.
And one final thought. Which of these ideas resonated most with you? What's one small step you can take today to align your actions with your values, with the future self you want to become? Think about how your personality shapes your vision and how that vision, in turn, can guide your personal growth.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive into BLEIBEANDERS, bringing these valuable Austrian perspectives to our English-speaking audience.
Absolutely. We highly recommend checking out the full episodes if you can.
Yeah, and let us know what you think.
See you in the next deep dive.
Think
Take
bigger.
care, everyone.
Act bolder. Win faster. Subscribe now.